We've only got about half the group so far, so I want to see if we can give folks a few more minutes to find their way in. All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Maybe coming off of a holiday weekend, we've got folks either still coming back or still getting caught up or who knows what. So let me just got a pretty simple, straightforward agenda this morning. We'll go around the virtual room and do quick introductions. And then the bulk of it, this first meeting will be a little bit of talking at you. Lorene Bobo from District 5 is going to give the FDOT's perspective and what they're working on. I'm going to give you some data on, since we're focusing on vulnerable users and particularly on speed of corridors, looking at what other types of crashes and what proportions of them are speed related. And then also give a little overview of some of the things that we're working on here from a planning level standpoint for here at Metro Plan Orlando. And then just open things up for some discussion, open discussion on what sort of strategies we want to work on going forward. I think that will be kind of an evolving practice, you know, as we learn more and share our ideas. So so let's go ahead and start with our introductions. So you all know me, Mighk Wilson with Metro Plan Orlando, and I'll be your host today. And
round robin or
yeah. Let me just sort of call who I see on my screen here. So working my way down. So Emily.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Hanna. I am the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida, and we administer the Best Foot Forward pedestrian safety program in the region. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks, Emily. And Miles.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Miles O'Keefe. I'm the manager of strategic planning at Lynx. So in addition to looking out kind of in the future of transit services for the region, we do take into account with great seriousness the bicycle and pedestrian accessibility and safety for all of our transit passengers. So good to be here with all of you.
All right, thanks, Miles. Kelly.
I'm Kelly Brock. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Castleberry, and complete streets and pedestrian safety are at the forefront of what we're doing in mobility.
Thanks, Kelly. Lorene.
Good afternoon, everybody. FDOT's District 5 Safety Administrator.
Joe.
Good afternoon, Joe Santiago. I'm the Transit and Intermodal Supervisor for the Modal Unit of FDOT District 5.
All right, Melissa. Melissa Council? She may have stepped away because her camera's not on there. Okay, Mika Berry?
Looks like she may be frozen. Hi, everyone. I am Mika Berry. I'm the Citizen Advocate representing the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board.
All right, and Humberto?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Humberto Castellero. I am the Traffic Engineering Manager for Orange County. Apologize for the video. I'm calling from Panama, Central America, so I don't know what is happening with the video. So I have here, and definitely safety is of paramount importance for us, especially with the dangers by design. So I'm very happy to join this team and to see what we can do so we can improve safety.
Well, thank you, Humberto. I think you set a record for farthest afield to attend a meeting.
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Lorene to give us an overview of. I'm sorry, Nelisa, we got you back. Yeah.
My internet seems to be coming in and out. I guess it's because of the storm. I am sitting here. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Nelisa Council. I'm the founder of Love Makes Me Grow, which is an organization that teaches families how to grow their own sustainable food gardens. And we are Metro Planning Board's #1 fan. We give out all their information. Emily Hanna is amazing, who comes out to all of our events, and we educate our families in the community. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, and so looking at our attendee list, I'm not seeing any other names popping up there. So as I was about to do, hand it over to Lorene, if you want to go ahead and share your screen. And
All right. Thank you. All right. Can you see my screen? Looks good. Awesome. All right. Well, like I introduced myself, my name is Lorene Bobo, and I'm the District 5 Safety Administrator for our District 5 Office of Safety. I'd like to go through a pretty brief presentation that I've given internally to FDOT, and it just kind of shares a little bit about our vision and our kind of our renewed focus on safety here lately. So just going to share our focus on our safety, and that safety begins with me and safety begins with you. All right, and it's not moving. It's worked when we tried it. Oh no. Let me stop share and see if I can get it unfrozen. Let's try this again. All right, here we go. Very good. So our office is pretty new. We were established on June 1st of this year. And there's 5 of us right now, and we make up our district safety engineer. We've got that's Tony Nossi, and then we have Stephanie Moss came over from Modal, and she's our bike ped coordinator. And then we've got Yvonne Broxton on our team, and she's a traffic safety specialist, so she handles a lot of our special requests that come in to the office, safety related, bike ped related often. And then we've got Joe Stewart, and he is the coordinator for our 10 community traffic safety teams that cross our 9 counties. So we've got a good team, and we're looking to add somebody here soon that has more of a design background to help us reviewing our plans and things like that. So I'm very excited to have this team together, and excited to see what we can do and make a positive impact on Central Florida. My goodness. Let's try this. Okay. So why are we focusing on safety in District 5? Well, in Florida, we are ranked 3rd in the country for our traffic fatalities and our specifically our walking fatalities. It's not where we want to be, obviously. While this is better than the year before, it's still not where we want to be. So we're not necessarily trending in the right direction quite yet. There's also dangerous by design, and in Central Florida, 3 of our areas are in the top 5, which are in the top 20 for the country. So that's something that we're not happy about at all, and we want to make a difference, and really we want to get off that list, obviously. So this is why we're focusing on safety. Safety has always been a #1 priority, but we have a renewed focus. So now if I dig a little bit closer into Central Florida, this is from our Signal 4 analytics data. In 2019, and then again in 2020, we had 690 fatalities on Central Florida roads. And that's not just state roads, that's local, county, city, town roads as well. But we're not moving. We're not moving in either direction. And definitely we want to move those numbers down. So it's definitely something we want to focus on. This year, this data is a little old. It's about a month old. So we had 411 fatalities as of mid last month. And if you look at the numbers, that we're trending in the same direction as we have been in the past. So this is something we definitely want to focus on. So this makes me angry. And I put the Swedish flag up because Vision Zero started in Sweden in 1997. They had over 500 fatalities in their country, and they decided that was too many. So they came up with Vision Zero, and now 20 plus years later, they have dropped their numbers over 50%. So they're doing something right. And so we're reading up a lot about them and trying to understand what are some things that they did to really change that safety culture. And hopefully we can adopt some of those things and make some changes here in Florida and Central Florida. So I put our org chart up here because it just shows you how important this is to our district secretary, Jared Perdue. I report directly to him. I'm not in operations. We're not in development. We're going to work with everybody internally to really grow this safety culture and make a difference, a positive difference on our roadways. And this is important because sometimes we get siloed. We don't necessarily mean to, but we do. So this way we'll be able to work with everybody. He's going to ask me directly, what are we doing? How are we making a difference? And he's going to have his finger on the pulse. So what do we want to achieve? We want to provide a unified effort to greatly reduce crashes and effects of crashes to ultimately get to 0 fatalities and serious injuries. And I say it in this way because while we definitely want to reduce crashes, our real goal is to reduce those fatalities and serious injuries. We're likely never going to fully eliminate crashes from occurring. There's going to be interactions with vehicles and with people and things like that, but nobody should have to, it shouldn't cost their life because something happened, right? So if it's reducing speeds, whatever it may be, that's really our focus, is how do we reduce those fatalities and serious injuries? So when I was asked to step into this role as safety administrator for District 5, I was really thinking about like, okay, well, I mean, there's a gazillion different directions that we can go, right? And to me, the first thing that we need to do is understand the things that we are doing, because there's a lot of really awesome things that all of our agencies are working on, the department's working on, that have made a difference on our transportation facilities in a safety manner, right? But like we looked earlier, the numbers aren't changing. So maybe we're not making it worse, but we're also like, we're not getting those numbers down. So to me, these are our current safety efforts different groups are doing. And this is what I consider our big rocks, okay? But when I put all those rocks in a jar, I can still see through them. So understanding what we are doing will help us to understand what we aren't doing yet. So these may be, but before we get there, we need to make sure that we're all aligned. If we're all going different directions and we don't fully understand what each one of us is doing, we're not going to be as effective as we can be if we all come together and we really understand what we're doing. We're not duplicating efforts. We all are moving in that same direction. Then we can identify those smaller rocks to fill those voids. Maybe it's things that we're not doing yet. Maybe it's things that we're doing, but we need to do more of, or we need to be bolder on. And so that's kind of the stage that we're in right now, is really understanding what we are doing so we can understand what we're not doing yet. We're working on our strategic plan. And to me, the three main foundation pieces to that are collaboration, education, and infrastructure. All three of those things are aligned with and tie into the safe systems approach that FHWA supports, the Florida Strategic Highway Plan, and our Vital Few Safety Action Plan. So all of these things are intertwined with these three items. So a little bit more about collaboration. To me, this is going to be internally and externally. So, you know, right now we're working with our departments and understanding how we can all kind of work together to really make a difference on our projects, but also reaching out to our county, city, MPOs, coalitions, anybody else that might have a similar interest as the department, to really understand how we can work together and move forward. We have a renewed focus and we want to be community centric. So in the past, FDOT we would come at a project with, hey, public, this is the project that we'd like to build. What's your impact? What's your input? And we would take that input and we might, you know, massage the project a little bit and change some things, and because we want to build a good project. But now we want to start even earlier than that and really understand, what does that community want? What does that community need? What type of project do they need? You know, if we have a resurfacing project coming along, we have a really great opportunity there to build in a lot of features and things like that that would help improve the safety of that corridor. So we really need to understand that community. You know, I know where I live. I can tell you about the roads in my little vantage point really well. But if I go a city over, I don't know that city as well as the people that live there. And so we really want to build those relationships and make sure we're building the right projects. We also want to share our FDOT safety story. In my opinion, every single project that we do is a safety project. A resurfacing project is improving the safety of that corridor, of that area. And so how we tell our story is going to help us kind of to build that bridge to the community. And, you know, we're not coming along just to be the annoying construction on your way to work. We're actually doing a lot of really great things as part of that project. We want to, as we're collaborating, we want to share the efforts that we're working on, but we also want to learn from others. I've had several meetings now with some of the counties and some of the cities, and every single one I've learned something a little bit new on. And I'm really excited about continuing that sharing of ideas back and forth between all of us. This is not just an FDOT outwards thing, you know, this is everybody. So we're looking to put together some quarterly safety summits that will give everybody, the cities and the counties and the department and others, an opportunity to really share our best practices, ask, hey, have you guys been dealing with anything like this? And provide that platform for all of us to collaborate. Because at the end of the day, the traveling public doesn't know, nor should they care, in my opinion, if they're on a state road, a city road, or a county road. They deserve to have the best transportation system, whatever way that they're traveling. And that's a connected network, right? It's not just, we shouldn't be siloed. And we'll also be producing a quarterly newsletter to kind of share information, you know, when we're not doing our summits and things like that. So education, I feel like this is probably one of our biggest areas that we can really make an impact. 94% of crashes on our roadways, contributing factors is human behavior, right? So it's not necessarily the roadway that is unsafe, it's humans acting like humans. You know, none of us here on this call are perfect. We've all made a mistake at some point, but it shouldn't cost their lives or somebody else's life because of that. So if 94% of our crashes, a contributing factor is human behavior, that's something that we really need to focus on. Now, there are things that we can do on our roadways to help influence that behavior. Maybe it's narrower lanes, putting up landscaping that kind of brings you in, chicanes, so it's not just a straight shot. Those are things that we can do to help bring down that speed. And, you know, maybe you're not as comfortable looking at your smartphone while you're driving. And so that's the types of things that we can focus on that engineering side. So education, I really want to get to the heart of people, that they're responsible when they're using the system, whether they're walking, biking, driving, however they're using the system, they're responsible for their actions, but they also need to be respectful of the other users on that roadway. And also the message that safety starts with me and safety starts with you. You know, every single day from the moment that we wake up, we're making decisions, whether, you know, throughout that day, whether it's while we're working or we're driving to work or whatever it may be. And so just really making that point that we're all responsible and everything. And it starts with me and it starts with you. I really want to get out into the schools more and get to our children, because they will teach their parents. I know my 7-year-old and 10-year-old boys, they tell me when, Mom, I don't have my seatbelt on, don't move the car yet. Mom, why are you looking at your phone? I might be sitting at a stoplight, but they know that I shouldn't be looking at my phone. And so they will go home and they will teach their parents, Mom, you know, maybe we should use the crosswalk that's over there. Or Mom, let's you know, they'll teach their parents those things, and then they'll grow up with that. And that's a big part of the Swedish culture. Is you think about it, those kids that started learning 20 years ago about using the transportation system safely, they're the drivers now. They're the ones having families and having kids. So it might take some time, but we'll get there. I also want us to think outside the box of different ways to engage and share our safety message. There's a lot of influencers on the radio with our sports teams, things like that, that if they're sharing that message, somebody will hear that and go, oh, okay, I respect that person. I like the things that that person says. Maybe I'll slow down. Maybe driving the fastest on I-4 isn't what I want to do because I want to go home to my family at night. So we've actually started engaging with some of our local radio stations, and they're interested in helping us to kind of help share that message more organically, not necessarily a sponsored by FDOT message, but just talking about how they're going to live their lives. And they're going to make sure they put their phone down when they're driving. Someone out there will hear that, and that'll resonate with them. And so those are some of the low-cost ways that we hope that we can start to change that safety culture externally. So our infrastructure, I kind of touched on this before, right? So human behavior is a huge part of what's happening in a crash, but that doesn't mean that there aren't more things that we can do. So one of the things that we'd like to do here in District 5 is out of the Office of Safety is we are going to touch every single project that comes out of District 5. Whether it's coming from traffic ops, from planning, from the resurfacing program, whatever it may be, we want to look at that project, we want to be proactive, and we want to be bold. In the past, we may have not done things on a project because it didn't have a lot of crashes. It wasn't a high crash corridor, it wasn't on the high injury network. We're going to look at every single project. If it makes sense and we can lower that speed and put those improvements in, we're going to do as much of that as we possibly can. There's a kind of a renewed thinking within the department that if it's the right thing to do, we need to figure out how to fund that improvement on a project, because resurfacings we only do about every 15 years. So I don't want to wait another 15 years to do improvements. We need to do them now if we can. And so the Office of Safety, when we're looking at all those projects, we're not only looking to see what we can find, but we're also teaching and empowering our engineers, our consultant engineers, bring those ideas to us. Ultimately, I want to look at a project and go, man, you guys thought of everything, because it's not just our responsibility to make sure there's safety in a project, it's everybody's responsibility. So we're excited about the opportunities there. And we've already met with a lot of consultants that are very excited about what they can do to help us on our projects. I also don't think it's ever too late to incorporate the right elements into a project. We have projects that are letting right now that started 2 or 3 years ago because of the length of time it takes to, come up with a project, start design, planning, whatever it may be. So if there's a new technology or some new idea that we've learned about in the last 6 months, let's see if we can incorporate it into this project. Even construction, it may not be too late to do those things. So not only are we going to look at every project, we're going to look at them at every phase as well to make sure that we're doing everything we can. Target speed is a really important concept right now. I think at a future meeting, we're going to share a little bit more to help you guys understand how we're going to be moving forward with target speed. But in the past, we would have looked at what do we want our design speed to be? What can we go up to 45? Can we go up to 55? Now it's almost like the flip-flop. What do we want people to be driving? If somebody's driving at 35 miles per hour versus 55 miles per hour, and they do have an interaction with a pedestrian, 35 miles per hour, there's a lot better chance that that person that was walking is going to walk away. 55, they may not. So it's a different mindset. How do we lower that speed so that all users feel comfortable using that roadway. They're still getting through. We're still getting that capacity through the corridor, but maybe not as many people are risking their lives to use that corridor. So stay tuned on target speed, but it's a pretty big mind shift, and I'm really excited about it. And I think it's supported all the way up to Secretary Tebow, and we're gonna make a positive difference with that. So just a few more little things, some initial thoughts to get us on the best path. I think aligning our efforts is going to be very, very critical. And so far, the meetings that we've had, everybody really wants to do that. How do we help each other out? You know, maybe on a state road project, we can go a little bit further out because it interacts with a local road, and it makes sense to do that work. You know, where can we find those opportunities and use them? State road, local road, the user doesn't care, right? So we need to be moving together in the same direction to improve all of our transportation network, because those numbers I showed you were not specific to a state road. We need to continue to promote that safety culture. You know, safety starts with me, safety starts with you. We're meaning to make safe choices every day, whether it's in our job or in our daily lives. And look for those untapped opportunities. I'll give one I just realized last week. I took my 10-year-old for his annual checkup, and the doctor's going through her normal kind of asking him questions, you know, Connor, when you get on a bike, before you do that, what do you do? And he's like, I put a helmet on. Okay, you get in the car with your mom. What's the first thing you do? I put my seatbelt on. And then she asked, if you want to cross the road, what do you do? And he was like, because he wasn't sure where she was headed with the question. And her answer was, you take an adult's hand to cross the roadway. And I was like, okay, she could also say, you know, I'm going to look for a crosswalk, or I'm going to look both ways. Like there's some more things that she could have added to that. And so I'm going to, when I see my best friend who's a pediatric nurse next week, I'm going to ask her, like, how do we get that message out, right? So to me, those are those untapped opportunities that every single year that doctor is going to be asking those questions and can reiterate those types of thoughts. So moving forward, like I said, we're going to be touching every project and really empower our engineers to be bold. I was in a meeting last week, and the engineer was like, well, this is a $1 million option. This one's 1.4 million, but we can go with the $1 million because it's cheaper. And I was like, no, if the 1.4 gets us more bang for our buck and it's going to be safer, we'll find that $400,000. Like we'll make that happen. So don't discount it just because it's the more expensive option. We're going to continue those collaboration meetings with our partners. There's a lot more to go. And we are putting out a continuing services contract. The ad will go out in October. We'll have somebody on board by February is the plan. But this group of consultants, this team of consultants, we really want them to help us with that educational outreach, research, studies. You know, what are other states doing? What are other countries doing? How can we do more here in Central Florida? So I'm really excited about getting them on board. Something that we did when we started our office was we created an email address, d5-safetyideas@dot.state.fl.us. And this is an email address that anybody can email us ideas. And it can be, you know, maybe they saw something that like, hey, I really think there needs to be a this here or whatever, or whatever they think of, right? I want them to feel empowered to share that with us. And then we'll go down the path of figuring out what we can do with it. So a couple ideas that we've already gotten from our District 5 folks internally is, and I'm putting these up because these are not engineers. These are not people that are involved in the immediate projects that we do. They're just people that work for FDOT and they have a great idea. So one was painting the edges of the islands, which we actually already do that, but my guess is she's probably seen some that aren't painted or the paint has faded. And so it's just like a good reminder to us and our maintenance offices and stuff to keep those islands painted. But I'm glad that she shared the idea with us. Another one was, if you don't have a light, use your smartphone if you're walking at night or something like that. And so she shared that with us, and she was like, I have no idea how you can use this, but I always thought that would be a good idea if you didn't have something else. And to be honest, it was something that I hadn't thought about. Now, I'm not often finding myself in a situation where I'm at night without a light, but if I did, now that idea is in my head. So maybe we use that in our messaging with some of the groups that we do work with and things like that. And another one was from our maintenance office, and he had been seeing some in an increase in crashes at an intersection. So now we're studying that intersection. So I shared this with at our town hall meeting because I wanted everybody to feel like it was okay to share these ideas. Don't assume somebody else has already brought it up. Don't assume somebody else has already mentioned it to us. Go ahead and bring it to us. So if you have any ideas, send them our way, the 5-safety ideas. And at the department, we end every presentation with a safety message, regardless, even if we're not talking about safety. So this one is to not rely on the technology in your vehicle. I have a Subaru Ascent that keeps me in my lane, tells me when I'm getting too close to another vehicle, slows me down, things like that. But I can't rely on that. I have to stay responsible when I'm driving. So with that, safety begins with me. Safety begins with you. So thank you very much, Mike, for letting me have a few minutes. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, use the raised hand feature and we'll.
Yeah.
All right, Humberto, if you want to.
Yes, thank you so much, Lorraine. I really appreciate it. I come from the central office at the DOT, so definitely I was part of the major initiatives that they started with safety. And really, it is a culture change. I guess that it has to start with each one of us. When I joined Orange County, I know that we were talking, especially when we have a lot of development projects. And one of the things that I got very involved, it was in terms of the traffic, the operations, and the safety. Because as we look at projects, if the safety is not caught during the planning, then it's going to cost you more during design. And if it is not included, so it is a tenfold increment. And by the time that it gets to the maintenance and to the operations, it is very critical and very expensive. Like for instance, one of the things that I was seeing was runabouts that they were designed maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it was more like a rotary. It didn't have any deflection angles. You were driving to the center island if you didn't look. And what I said was, we cannot continue going this route. So I had my contacts at the central office and I said, we must submit these runabout design projects for review. So that was one of the critical things that we are doing. So that is, and I am educating also my colleagues during the planning and the land development. So that was the other one that it was critical, which I am trying also to encourage, was the intersection lighting, which the DOT, I was part of the central office at the DOT, $20.5 million for the District 5, which it was amazing. And the intersections is where you have, you know, the most number of conflicts. You know, everything converges at the intersection. And one of the things that I was telling my colleagues is that when you are designing an intersection and you put Broadway lighting, you're usually gonna try to space your poles the farthest possible. So of course, nobody puts a light in the middle of the intersection, which it means that your lighting is gonna be totally away from the intersection. So intersection lighting is different than roadway lighting. So we are also using, one of the things that I am really proud of Orange County was that we are revising our Orange County code. And as part of the code and part of the resolutions, we are including safety features and access as part of our codes, because also one of the things that I know that the DOT talked a lot about it is a nominal versus the substantive design, and having the code, because also the Green Book, a lot of the municipalities go to the Green Book. Now there are revisions to the Green Book, but the old Green Book, it just talked about a 4-foot sidewalk or shoulders. It didn't really talk about safety. Now it's been more progressive, but in our code, we talk about the Green Book, but we also talk about the FDN. And one of the things that we're doing is that in some critical corridors, we're doing context sensitive classifications. So then we can have what we call a target speed within a certain range, not the 85th percentile. So there is a lot of tools. And the last thing that we're doing is I'm putting together a presentation to upper management where I would like to implement a vision 0 or target 0. So this goes along with what you are putting together, but definitely if there is, I guess, an appetite or a need for us to be addressing these critical issues. So I'm out of the state now, well, out of the country, but when I come back, I will certainly put this presentation together. I can share with you if you have some feedback, and maybe I can include some of the collaborations with the MPO, with the DOT and the other agencies, because I think that will go a long way. So that's where we are in Orange County.
That's great. Thank you. That's awesome. Oh, Mike, you're on mute.
Emily, did you have a question? I saw your hand and then you dropped it.
Yeah, I just had a comment on the lighting, the cell phone. I just wanted to make a comment that unfortunately most of our vulnerable road users don't have smartphones. So they're not going to be able to illuminate the flashlight on their phone. What we're finding is that a lot of them need, and we're trying to find bike lights or some kind of lighting so that we can illuminate at least them and or their bike. So I know we're already kind of coordinating that with you, but that's really kind of the intense resources that we need as boots on the ground in order to illuminate the people that are crossing. Obviously, this is a Band-Aid on a bigger issue. I don't really want to be handing out lights because we should be illuminating our roadways either by doing in-road lighting, which I know a lot of communities are really hesitant about because of the maintenance, but I know just from data that we've looked at in other communities that do use that, the yield rate increases significantly by using in-road lighting and tying that into the system. So there are, I think, other ways for us to do lighting in an inexpensive way without having to necessarily go in and get permissions from Duke Energy and all those types of facilities to put in that lighting. But I just wanted to make that comment about the phone. Though a great idea, I'm just not sure those that are going to be needing it the most probably don't have that phone with them. So.
Agree. There's going to be a lot of different things that we're going to need to do. It's not just one easy fix. And we actually are piloting a project in Brevard County with Space Coast TPO. They're helping to fund it, some in-road lighting at our RFBs along A1A. So the department we're open to it. It may not even be a pilot. I think we're allowed to do that. So
you're doing it at the OBT PHBs. Part of the secondary update that is going to be adding the in-road lighting. I think what a lot of our locals are waiting for to see that implemented, and then obviously see the maintenance of it and see whether or not it is something that, do they last more than a couple of years is something that, is a big kind of cost to our partners. But that's awesome. And we're really excited to see kind of the before and after of what those in-road lights do as far as the pedestrian yield rates go.
Great. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Emily. Also, I would also add that when we get ideas from the general, or any sort of idea, we need to test it in some way. So when somebody says using your smartphone light, well, what does that really look like? Let's go out in the field and see what that really looks like. And is that really a viable solution, right? All right, Nelisa. Nelisa Council.
Oh, is she frozen? There
She's
she is.
moving. She's trying to come in.
I am, I'm hoping.
Nelissa,
I wonder
it might be better if you turn your camera off. We might get your audio better. If it's a bandwidth issue. All right, and then unmute. There you go.
Okay, is that better?
There you go.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm in what they call, my mayor of my city would call the boonies, which is the Ponciana-Kissimmee fine line between the cows and the city. Recently, I wish I could show you a picture because that's what I was gonna do. Last week and a half ago, we had a senseless death of a child. He was 13 years old. Very loved in the community. His name was Brandon, and it was somebody that jumped over a curb, going faster than what they were supposed to in an area that has had one too many issues. And we're talking about a corridor of from Marigold all the way down. This is an area that at one time was built for homes that had a lot of land between it. And over the past 10 years, it's multiplied in all these little homes, behind homes, all around the homes. So we have an influx of people that are coming from all different walks of the earth. And we're welcoming to this. But when you go on the community of Ponciana board line, you'll see that we're having accident after accident. I can send you right now 5 different accidents since the time that the child died. I communicated with the parents and I really hurt because I have family in this area. The streets don't have safety for the children, and there's only one walkway on one side. My question is, how does someone get an area into a project that can be evaluated by your organization that we can put some type of safety method? I'm already the type of person that all my events, I will be inviting you. My name is Melissa. Hi. And anything with safety and streets and bringing it to a better education of the families out here, of them understanding that maybe walking with a flashlight, is safer, that no one, didn't see the clothing that you have on if you're not going to wear bright things. But that child dying, if I was able to show you a picture of him, it would break everyone's heart here. So anything that we do to bring an area that's the lost area, as our city officials have said themselves, how can I get the help for it? Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing that. It's heartbreaking to hear. Big reason why I don't want my boys, out and about, because it's scary out there. But let's connect, Melissa, and let's see where that area is and see where we can move forward with that. See if we can do something down there. I just need some more details to really understand the area and stuff, but cool.
All right. Well, in the interest of moving things along, I'm going to dispel with the first half of my presentation, which is going to be a big data dump, and I didn't want to overwhelm everybody, but I will do a share of the things that we're working on in MetroPlan, and I'll I'll save the data for our next meeting. And give me a second here. And go through all the data stuff here. All right. So two main things that we've been working on in recent years. One is our pedestrian and bicyclist safety action plan, which by the way, Lorene, there's a lot of good behavioral outcomes and targets, in that would really help on the educational side of things. But on the planning and engineering side, what we've done is we've taken 6 of the 9 corridors that we looked at, that we identified in the first phase, and we are developing them into actual projects. 2 of them in Seminole County, as you can see here, Red Bug Lake Road, and as well as Tuscarora Road, so it sort of goes around the bend of that intersection. And then Lake Mary Boulevard from Lake Emma to 7th in Lake Mary. And then in Osceola County in St. Cloud, we have Michigan Avenue from A Street to Michigan Elementary. So for all of these, we have a whole package of recommendations. We've costed them out and have benefit to cost, everything that you need for bringing this into the state's highway safety program for funding. Then here are the Orange County projects, Pershing Avenue for the entire length of that from Dixie Belle to Goldenrod, Michigan Street, which is in Orlando from the Sunrail Railroad crossing to Mills Avenue, and then Washington Street from John Young Parkway to OBT. So all these are in the works and are being reviewed by the locals. I saw a hand up from Miles. Did you have a question?
Sorry, finger slip on the keypad. I was trying to click on the chat box.
Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. The other thing that we've started work on, we've been working on the past couple of years, is the high severity corridors. This started off by noticing where our pedestrian fatalities were focused. It was on a fairly small set of roads. It was only about 28 miles worth of roads were responsible for the lion's share of our pedestrian fatalities. But we extended that concept out to just looking at serious crashes overall. And so we've got this list of about 13 FDOT roads, and these ones in yellow are ones that we've just completed assessments on. And so with these projects, so VHB has been the consultant on that. They've developed basically a concept plan for these, so they're not fully developed projects, but because they're FDOT, basically those concepts will be handed off to them for ultimate implementation. But as you can see here, these are the corridors that have the highest rates of fatal and serious injury crashes overall. And a lot of them, that's driven in large part by the number of pedestrian and cyclist injury crashes. So like I said, we've got these concepts developed, and so we'll be working with the department and with any local governments that are involved for how we fund and implement those projects going forward. Also been talking with Paul Schozel with the district about the concept of a nighttime posted speed reduction. We've identified 4 corridors, 2 in Orange County and one in each of Seminole and Osceola. And what we're looking for here are places where we can do a good pilot and corridors that have a pretty good concentration of nighttime pedestrian and bicyclist serious injury crashes. And we've been doing some research on this concept. We found that the city of Tucson, Arizona has actually been doing this for many years. And we're trying to get more data from them to see not only what's the impact on it from a crash standpoint, but how are the speeds actually being impacted? Do we actually get the reduced nighttime speed behavior that we're looking for? So we hope that we can make this a reality and then measure it and see how that performs. So that's very briefly what we're working on. We've got some other ideas in mind, but not quite ready to bring it to full discussion. But that's what we're looking to you all for is other ideas. What sort of strategies can we do, particularly with the speed focus, to get those speeds down so that we can have an impact on these serious injury crashes. So I just wanted to go ahead and open up the floor for that. Again, mostly focusing on speed, but I mean other ideas as well, just from a strategy standpoint for us to start collecting and assessing for what's got potential. So Emily.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I have a meeting now, so I've got to hop off. So I'll just state my piece and then leave. To update Virginia and I guess the rest of the group, I put in the chat the determination of the crossing of the on-ramp at Lee Road and I-4. There were some kids that were no longer being able to be bused because that was considered no longer a hazardous walking condition. I've reviewed the state statute language, and I really, though it's very specific, I think that there are opportunities that this still falls into the hazardous walking condition. So I think it's just a matter of talking to Orange County Public Schools a little bit more about what it is that they're hanging their hat on, that this isn't a safe walking condition, what criteria. Some of that was number of vehicles within the hours of the school operations. That specific data I don't have, so maybe it does warrant that, but in the statute itself, there's a section in there that says that if there's a conflict, that obviously the safest option needs to be the one identified. And I feel like that was still busing the kids in that instance. So I'm not sure why we kind of had to go that roundabout way of determining that they were still going to bus those kids when it was to me, pretty evident in the statutes that was an option all along. But obviously, as Lorraine indicated, we want to go back out to that intersection and walk it and identify some opportunities. One of the ideas that we're having out of the Best Foot Forward program, and kudos to Osceola County for implementing this really quickly, was stop bars in front of crosswalks. Oftentimes we find that drivers don't know where to stop. And especially if there's nothing marked and it's just a sign that says stop here, they're not really sure. And for a pedestrian, I don't know if you've ever had a vehicle kind of come up on you and stop short at a crosswalk. That's scary, especially if that stop bar is adjacent to that crosswalk. Usually the tires are at the stop bar, not necessarily the nose of the vehicle. So I know the stop bar distance is between 4 to 10 feet. I believe that's in the FDN. Don't quote me on that. But really, I'd like to see that distance brought back a little bit further just to provide that comfort for that pedestrian. What I've noticed in the data that we've collected, and Mike, I can certainly send this to you, is that by adding the stop bar, we've had an increase at that one location. So I'd like to test this a little bit more, but at the one location, our yield rates increased 19%. Just by adding the stop bar. So I think there are little things that we can do on the state and local roads that will make it safer for pedestrians and obviously more comfortable for them, because it's not only the safety aspect that we have to consider, but if we make these safety improvements, more people are going to cross the road. We want it also to be comfortable for them to cross the road. The other thing that I want to comment, Lorraine, you and I might need to go out to the OBT PHBs, and I did bring this up to Paul when we were out there a year or so ago doing the community outreach efforts, but the push buttons in the middle of these facilities with the curb does not allow anybody with a wheelchair to reach the button. We actually had someone in a wheelchair go out and lean into the button at that new PHB at Holden and OBT, and she could not reach it. And Channel 9 got that on news. And so I told Paul, like, we need to get this fixed. I don't know if that ever got fixed or not, but I think that in design and review, checking the curb location for those that are in a wheeled vehicle, that they're crossing in a wheeled vehicle, need to be able to have that flush so that they can pull up adjacent to that curb without having that distance.
Yeah, that one must have gotten missed because that's typically one of the things that we do look at. So I'll actually, I made a note of that. I'll get that looked at.
Yeah, I mean, we watched the one and she didn't hit the button coming across. And we're like, why didn't you hit the button? And she's like, oh, I didn't know it was there. And so I was like, can you reach the button? And then she rolled up to it and she's like, I can't even. She was like leaning in. She was a larger woman. So obviously I think there was some, issues with just reaching, but we have to design for everyone, right? So I think that was, something that to consider.
Okay.
So
Thank you for
those are
mentioning it.
yeah, absolutely. So those are just my ideas real quick. I apologize, I gotta hop off, but thank you again, Mike, and the rest of the team for all the work that you guys are doing. As Lorene mentioned, we can't do this alone. It does with everyone, including me, including you. Everyone is involved with safety. So that's my spiel. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'll see you later.
All right, anyone else?
Hi, this is Jill Santiago. May I say something?
Sure, of course.
So I'm glad that that she brought up the stop bar, because I have noticed that people don't know what the stop bar is anymore, but also there's a lot of places that you try to stop at the stop bar and then you have to like inch your car forward because you can't see, left or right, whether, anybody's coming. So I'm wondering if we can take a note of it or do something about where people put their shrubbery, their fencing, if it impedes the sight distance at that stop bar, there should be something written that says you can't put fences or shrubbery a certain, space away, so that there could be some sight distance when you try to stop your vehicle at the stop bar, instead of making cars inch their way forward, because people don't, it's not a practice anymore to stop at the stop bar if you have to inch forward, and you get into at the intersection. That's where you can actually see with some of these fences and the shrubbery that people are allowed to put up. And it's not only, houses, it's also businesses that have that shrubbery, and I don't know if there's something that we could write or something about that.
Mhm.
And also,
Well, I think there are.
Oh, sorry. One last thing. I have done a stop on red event a few years back at one of those really unsafe corners. I think it was Hiawassee and Silver Star. And I actually talked to the people that take the bus. There's a bus stop there. And all of them, or the great majority, like maybe 90% of them, cross the street not at the intersection, because they have all seen people get hit at the intersection. So instead of doing that, they wait for the light to turn red and for cars to come to a stop, and they cross behind the stopped cars. So I'm just an observation, and also from talking to those users of the bus, that that's just something that I heard from them. Thank you.
To your point, Joe, about the about stop bars. So I think typically when a stop bar is on the road at an intersection, then I mean there are, local governments will have site triangle codes for intersections, so things should be set back. But when you have a stop bar for a driveway, for example, which is not, I mean, the regular rules for exiting a driveway to a stop sign is kind of superfluous anyway. But that's where I think the sightline issues will often more likely come up. I think what Emily was getting at was that these uncontrolled crosswalks where the driver is on the road but not stopped at a stop sign, that's where we need to be putting in a stop bar or the yield bar with the shark's teeth, so that drivers have a better understanding of what they need to do there. Thanks. All right, anything else? Well, I think after our next meeting, because I know Lorene or somebody from the department is going to talk about target speed and how speeds are set. I think that's when we can really start to sink our teeth into this issue, and it might spur a little more brainstorming on how we can help FDOT implement these new practices and how we can expand upon them, bringing them out to the local levels, and how just to make the entire planning process more effective within this new approach to safety and to planning. So, all right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right then. Well, we will see you next month, and be safe out there. Thanks, everybody.